When I was 10 years old, my family, not all of my family, but part of my family, we went on a hike. When I was 10 years old, we were fairly new to Virginia and to the South in general. And it was August, and we were in Southwest Virginia. My father, two of my uncles had come to visit, and my brother and I went out on a hike. My dad had seen a trail guide, and so he planned out this hike. He thought the 10-year-old, me, the youngest, would be able to handle this, it would be fine. And in truth, he was right. He had planned out a trail. I think we began along at a point on the Appalachian Trail, went down for, I don't know how many miles, but I know that it was in the plural, miles. And we were going to meet another trail that would circle back to where we had parked the car. At that crossroads, there was on the map, the trail guide, a flowing spring, one of these springs that would feed a stream that would become this great cataract of water bursting forth from the earth. And so in his mind's eye, and he had done a fair amount of camping and hiking in his day, he had plotted this all out very carefully. We would carry X number of canteens with us. We'd have plenty of water for the hike out. We would fill our canteens, and then we would have water for we'd drink our fill at the spring, and then have water for the return hike. I said that we were new to Virginia at that point, and we were new to the South. And there's such a thing as local knowledge. Anybody who's been out on the water is familiar with local knowledge. You'll see white PVC pipe driven in, and it's not marked on any of the nautical charts. And so we'll be discussing it when we're out sailing. I'll say, well, that's called local knowledge. You hear from somebody which side of the PVC pipe is the sandbar. And since we sometimes aren't previous recipients of that local knowledge, we find out sort of sailing by feel. Once you reach the bottom, you feel it. And then you go, no, actually we're supposed to be on that side of the PVC pipe. I'm not talking about an experience from Friday. I am, actually. But back to the hike. So we went out, and it was fun. We were having a great time. We started early. And but it was one of those August days that starts out at about 90 degrees when the sun breaks the sky. And so we were just going along and drinking our water, probably drank it all in the first mile. And we got to this spring, this gushing cataract of water flowing forth from the earth. And it was a dry mud puddle. Not quite dry, it was just a muddy puddle. And you could see where the spring had been and would be again in the spring. Maybe that's why they call it spring. And so we began our return hike. And I remember the drama as maybe I think some of the adults hammed it up a little bit for our benefit, but we just thought this was going to be the end of everything. The walk back was long and dry. Our throats were parched. It was terrible. This passage is about thirst. This passage in Psalm 42 is about seeking and thirsting for God, desiring God, and allowing God to quench that kind of thirst that we have within us in our spiritual journeys. Each one of us experiences a kind of thirst, the same sort of thirst, that same sort of desire to satisfy that I felt along that trail. Now, whether we acknowledge it or not, whether we feel it or not today, at this moment, we all need something more than what we can find in this world. Many people try to fill that thirst. They try to satisfy that need with other things. And the list is long and not exhaustive. Material things. People try to buy things to satisfy themselves. If I just get that new shiny whatever, if I get that new big screen thing, if I get the new car or this or that, everything will seem better. I will enjoy life more. A faster processor on my computer will make everything better. But it's not just material items. Some people try to satisfy this need with entertainment. You've heard of movie junkies. They know every movie. You cannot name a movie that a movie junkie has not seen, or make a movie reference that they don't pick up on. And some people see that same need being filled with television. There are adrenaline junkies. I don't think we have any adrenaline junkies here today. But adrenaline junkies are the ones who are always jumping out of airplanes, jumping off perfectly good airplanes that could land, by the way. They're jumping off cliffs. There's no pack of wild animals chasing them over the edge. They do this under their own volition. Adrenaline junkies. There are all kinds of ways that people seek to satisfy this thirst that we have deep within us. There are the junkies, the drug and alcohol people who try to satisfy this desire with even more self-destructive needs. These other things, these things that are not God, don't satiate this thirst. Instead, they make us thirstier. They make us want more. It's a little bit like a potato chip. Has anybody ever tried to eat one potato chip? The salt, the oil. You've succeeded? I thought I heard somebody say, yes, I have. I've eaten one before. Maybe that was because there was one left in the bag. But the salt, the oil, it's all designed with our taste buds in mind to get us to want another one. And I have to take this moment to confess that I have, on occasion, when nobody else is at home, opened a bag of potato chips. Now, this is a family-sized bag, probably. And I sit down, and I'm watching something, documentary. And most likely with me, it probably is. And I'll eat a few chips. And before I know it, I will have eaten a whole bag of chips. And I can tell you from my experience, and this is why I don't mind confessing it, because maybe through this act of confession and contrition, I won't do it again. I don't feel good afterwards. I got a tummy ache. We tell our kids, don't eat all your candy, you'll get a tummy ache. And then here I am. Somebody said to me the other day, we're all hypocrites. It just depends on to what degree we're willing to acknowledge. The psalmist understood the human desire for something more. And in Psalm 42, we read about this idea of thirsting for God. But this psalm isn't a happy, clappy song about God who's good and who's always there. It's like this hymn, Abide With Me. The chords, the melody, and even the context in which you've heard the hymn before might remind you of a funeral, because we seek comfort in a funeral. Those are the moments when we're most open and vulnerable and willing to say, God, I need your help right now. I've lost somebody, a friend, a spouse, somebody very near or dear, a parent. And as we gather with other people in the church, we sing a hymn like Abide With Me, because we want that comfort. But that hymn isn't just about funerals. It's not just about comfort. It's about recognizing the experiences that we have in life and knowing and acknowledging that we have this God who can give us this comfort, who can be with us. And so we can pray, we can continue, we can never give up. The psalmist understood this. My tears have been my food day and night. Can you imagine crying so much you feel that your tears are feeding you? Maybe you can imagine that. Maybe you've experienced that. I haven't. I never have. My wife and I have a friend who had some very bad news. And when she received this bad news, she cried so much. Some of the blood vessels actually ruptured in her eyes. And you could see as a visible sign when you saw her later and she wasn't crying, that she probably could say, I feel like my tears have been my food day and night. The psalmist knew how that felt. The psalmist knew that because we read and experience that in these words. The psalmist recognizes pain and the search for something greater, some meaning in the midst of what cannot be described as anything other than a difficult world. Nietzsche once wrote, "There are no beautiful surfaces without a terrible depth." There are no beautiful surfaces without a terrible depth. Don't need to get into Nietzsche and explore what his intent in that forward to a book that he was getting at. But we experience the beauty of a relationship with God. But there is a great, and what could even be described as a terrible depth to who God is. Mr. Tumnus. Does anybody know Mr. Tumnus? He was one of the characters in C.S. Lewis's Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And Mr. Tumnus said of Aslan, Aslan was the lion who, in many respects, symbolized God. And we can understand so much through C.S. Lewis' brilliance, his inspired brilliance. But Mr. Tumnus said of Aslan, he's not a tame lion. Neither is God a tame or ineffective God. The beauty of God's love is matched only by the wonder of God's greatness. And the psalmist understood this. The psalmist got it. And we get the benefit of that insight by reading the psalm. We benefit from this divine insight. The psalmist was mocked. This was part of the pain and probably helped lead to the insight. People said, "Where is your God?" But in Psalm 42, we read about this continual seeking, never giving up, no matter how difficult things became. "I pour out my soul. Why am I cast down? Why is my soul cast down?" Verse 7 uses this word that might lead us astray, cataract. You may have had cataract surgery on your eyes or may know somebody who has. But a cataract is also this large waterfall where the earth ruptures, where the earth breaks apart and water suddenly rushes forth. The sound of rushing water, earth pouring forth, reminds us of God's great power and awesome presence. Niagara Falls is absolutely one of the most beautiful sights on this earth. I'm convinced of it. It's one of my favorite places. As a matter of fact, in my early 20s, when I was younger and before I was married, I went there several times because after seeing it, I had to see it again. I had to drink in that view. It was amazing and powerful. The scope and magnitude of this kind of water pouring over, and it's incredible. But it's also savage and unsympathetic. If you take one wrong step past the guardrail, life can be snatched away in an absolute second. God's power is like a great waterfall, both great and frightening. There's a profound depth to it, and each of us has the opportunity to engage with God in this amazing power. In his book, The Longing for Home, Frederick Buechner shares a letter that he wrote to his grandson, Benjamin. The interesting thing about this letter is he wrote it when Benjamin was born, with the idea that his grandson wouldn't open the letter until he turned 21. And in part of the letter, Buechner writes, "Whether we are rich or poor, male or female, our stories are all stories of searching. We search for a good self to be and for good work to do. We search to become human in a world that tempts us always to be less than human or looks to us to be more. We search to love and to be loved. And in a world where it is often hard to believe in much of anything, we search to believe in something holy and beautiful and life-transcending that will give meaning and purpose to the lives we live." Psalm 42, at least verse 1, has been quoted on plaques, signs, and bumper stickers have been set to music choirs because we do a beautiful arrangement of it in the later service. As the deer longs for flowing streams, or as the deer panteth for water, so my soul longs for you, O Lord. But it doesn't end there. Psalm 42 continues this journey, just like we continue our journeys in life. And the psalm ends, why is my soul cast down? Why is it like this? Then, as if the psalmist is giving advice, never give up, never give up. The psalmist says, hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my help and my God. And we can give ourselves that advice too. When I was 10 and we were on that hike, and I was so thirsty, we were all so thirsty. I remember that. I remember vividly how dry my mouth was and how badly I wanted something to drink. We made it back to the car, and we drove someplace to get something to drink. But that wasn't the last time I was thirsty. And this is the reason thirsting for God is such a good metaphor for our faith. We keep seeking. We keep seeking. We keep searching. And throughout the journey, when we read Psalm 42, we can hear those words, never give up, never stop seeking, never stop searching